Hi everyone, glad to see you back. Thanks for hanging out with us. Alright, folks. Buckle up because we've got a fresh tale to spin for you today. Let's dive in. So, my wife decided to play the field with a coworker and then had the audacity to point fingers at me for not being a superstar in the bedroom. All this while I was still trying to pick up the pieces after losing my parents in a car accident. Talk about adding insult to injury, right? So, my wife Vanessa and I have been doing this whole marriage thing for 4 years now. Our relationship has been like a fairy tale, or at least that's what I believed. We totally vibe over stuff like gaming and hitting the great outdoors, for some camping whenever we can. We've got awesome jobs that pay well, and guess what? We're totally not into the whole kid thing. Vanessa is super independent, and honestly, that's the main reason I totally fell for her in the first place. So, we were an item for 10 months before we decided to play house together. So, Vanessa and I had a little heart-to-heart about our pasts, and let me tell you, she totally gets that I can't stand cheaters. Like, seriously, who even does that? She totally felt the same way and shared how her ex-boyfriend shattered her heart when she caught him getting cozy with one of his old flames. I was super happy we were totally vibing on this one. I'm all about being loyal and there for my partner, and Vanessa was totally on the same page at first. But, like, after we got engaged, she totally flipped the script on me. So, there we were, sipping on our drinks, and out of nowhere, she hits me with the idea of having a free pass in our relationship. Like, what? At first, I was totally lost in her explanation, but then she broke it down for me. A free pass is like getting a VIP ticket to hook up with a celebrity or someone you find super hot, and your partner won't even bat an eye about it being cheating. Wild, right? So she hit me with the question of whether I'd ever think about having a free pass in our relationship. Wild, right? I couldn't help but chuckle and shake my head because that thought had totally skipped my brain. I told her that a free pass is just a fancy way of saying let's cheat, and if she ever thought about wanting one, I'd much rather she just hit the road. So, Vanessa just went all silent on us, and we kept on sipping our drinks like nothing happened. Honestly, I brushed it off after that day, but looking back, I guess that was the first big ol' red flag in our relationship. So, a few months down the line, Vanessa comes up to me all excited, telling me about this super hot colleague who's been bugging her to go out for ages. Then, at some office party, she finally caved and kissed him just to make him stop talking. Classic Vanessa move. So, she spilled the beans about feeling super guilty and wanting to come clean. But her pals were all like, nah, don't tell him. He won't get it. So, my first thought was that this dude was totally being a creep, right? I told her she should totally report him ASAP and that she could file an HR complaint because, like, this is a big deal. So, Vanessa was all like, nah, it's no biggie, but that just made me raise an eyebrow, you know? I asked her why she even bothered telling me this if she thought it was no biggie to start with. So, Vanessa was all like, I thought you'd be a superhero and confront the dude yourself, just like my exes did. But then she was totally not into the idea of me suggesting she go to HR instead. Classic, right? So, she started grumbling about how I didn't love her enough and how she'd totally have a showdown with the woman if I ever kissed someone else. Classic, right? Honestly, I can't wrap my head around why Vanessa is turning this whole thing upside down like it's some kind of circus act. It was like someone was pulling my strings to put me in a totally wacky situation that had zero logic. Seriously, how does she think I'm supposed to react like her past boyfriends? Come on. It was like she just couldn't wrap her head around the fact that I was actually dealing with this situation like a grown-up. Her constant nagging about it being a love test really left a sour note for me. I straight up told her that if she didn't spill the beans to HR, I just have to think she was all in on that kiss with the guy, and that's a big ol' no-no for me. Cheating? No thanks. I can't tie the knot with someone who plays those games. When Vanessa heard this, her face went from I can't even to wait, what? She was like, are you serious? And I just nodded, saying again that cheating is totally not my jam. So, we had this little spat where she was all like, what if everyone judges me for calling out this dude? But I was like, who cares? If what you told me is legit, you gotta stand your ground. So, she went and spilled the beans to HR, and guess what? It turned into a whole drama, just like you'd think. So, they gave the boot to the dude and told Vanessa she totally nailed it. Vanessa totally nailed it by standing up for herself. Go, girl. So, guess what? A week later, I got a message from some random weirdo. He totally bragged that he was the dude Vanessa had smooched. So, He basically said that Vanessa totally kissed him on her own and that he's innocent in all this drama. Classic, right? So, this guy is saying that Vanessa totally never sported the engagement ring at work, which left him completely clueless about her being engaged. And get this, her friends never mentioned it either. That's why he thought it was totally cool to chase after her. So, he hit me up and was all like, "Hey, I just wanted to clear the air and say sorry for smooching your girlfriend." Like, really? That's it? So, like, obviously I didn't bother replying to his message because, let's be real, the dude got fired anyway, and back then, I totally believed Vanessa over him. Guess what? 2 months later, Vanessa and I snagged our dream venue. Can you believe it? It was a gorgeous ceremony, and we totally said our vows in front of our parents and the whole fam jam. The beginning of our married life was like a never-ending party. Everything was cruising along just fine until I stumbled upon some juicy dirt on her laptop. So, there I was, just chilling at home while she was off doing the grocery run. My laptop was busy getting its beauty sleep upstairs, so I thought, why not sneak a peek at her laptop for our flight info since our trip is just around the corner. So, I was just chilling in Safari, and I spotted this Reddit account page under frequently visited. My curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on it without a second thought. You won't believe how I found out Vanessa had this secret Reddit account she never mentioned. Turns out she was swapping not-so-PG pics with some random dude. Classic Vanessa, right? I was scrolling through the pics and guess what? In every single one, she had totally cropped out her face, and he was right there doing the same thing. What a pair. Their messages were definitely not all hearts and flowers, they were straight up spicy. But what really got me was how she totally spilled the beans about our sex life to this random person. I was totally speechless. So, when she strolled back in, I totally called her out, and let me tell you, she went whiter than a ghost when she figured out I had stumbled upon her account. I totally grilled her for an explanation because those pictures were just grossing me out. She paused for a sec, her eyes doing a little dance of panic before finally locking onto mine, and then, with all the confidence of a cat on a hot tin roof, she started to talk. She admitted it was a thrill to shoot her pics over to a total stranger and chat with him about stuff she knew was totally off limits. She said it was pretty much like watching porn and that it didn't mean a thing to her. She was all like, "Hey, I never said I loved him." And tried to play it cool about sending those pics with her face chopped off, claiming it was no biggie since he'd never figure out who she really is. Classic move, right? I was totally baffled trying to figure out her logic and what on earth could make her act like that. I asked her why on earth she'd even think about doing this if it was just because she wasn't happy in our marriage. But Vanessa was all like, "No way." With her eyes doing that whole puppy dog thing, trying to convince everyone that it was just a silly little thing that didn't mean a thing to her. She wouldn't stop gushing about how much she loved me and begged me to just let this whole thing slide, claiming it was just a cringe-worthy moment. She even swore she'd zap that Reddit account into oblivion right away. I felt like I was about to explode, ready to throw a tantrum, but instead, I just sat there, trying to wrap my head around this wild news. Well, it's not like we can just hit rewind and fix this mess, right? The damage is done, and we're all out of words here. I gotta say, after this whole thing, our sex life took a nosedive because I was feeling super betrayed and hurt. I had a tough time wanting to get all cozy with her, you know? Letting my guard down and being all mushy again felt like a big ask. The idea of getting all cozy with her had me feeling like I just stepped on a Lego, total panic mode. Vanessa totally picked up on my waffling, my not-so-subtle struggle to close the gap that had popped up between us. She gave it a shot, trying to fix the mess, but let's be real, her attempts just didn't cut it. Every time I glanced her way, my brain was like a movie reel of her texts with that dude, and let me tell you, it was not doing me any favors. So, like, just a week later, I got hit with even more bad news. Ugh. So, there I was at the office one morning, and guess what? My parents decided to spice things up with a car accident and ended up in pretty bad shape. I was totally blown away, like the ground just pulled a disappearing act on me, and I was left hanging in this crazy void of shock and bummer vibes. I zoomed over to the hospital to see how my folks were doing, like a superhero on a mission. The docs told me they were on life support because their organs were throwing in the towel. The docs straight up told me that the odds of them making it through this were under 50%. Yikes. I was just chilling in the waiting room for what felt like forever, crossing my fingers that they'd suddenly spring back to life like a cheesy movie scene. So, Vanessa plopped down next to me, all quiet like, and grabbed my hand. Cute, right? I was praying like a champ for a miracle, just waiting for some good news, but nope, my parents' situation stayed the same. So, my mom was the first to take off, and then my dad decided to join her right after. The only thing that made me feel a bit better was knowing that even in the afterlife, they were still hanging out together. I totally flopped on the ground, just sobbing until I ran out of tears. What a sight. My heart was smashed into a million tiny bits, and honestly, I had no clue how to keep on trucking after that. The funeral was a total roller coaster for me because I had no clue how to keep it together in front of everyone else. I gotta say, Vanessa totally handled all the stuff during this time. She totally let me have my moment to grieve for my parents while she took care of all the stuff that needed doing. After the funeral, I totally shut down, wrapping myself up in a big old blanket of numbness, struggling to find the words for just how much it hurt. I felt like I was stuck in a bear hug from sadness and gloom that just wouldn't let go. I was so wiped out that even the simplest tasks felt like climbing Everest, so I just lounged in bed all day, reminiscing about my parents and the good old days of my childhood. My parents were my solid ground, and losing them was like losing a chunk of my own self, you know? So, I had a little chat with my parents' lawyers, and guess what? They spilled the beans that my folks left me everything they owned. Not exactly a shocker, right? But hold on to your hat because the total haul is a whopping $2 million. Who knew? I was totally blown away, but then it hit me even harder. My folks busted their butts their whole lives, and they didn't even get to kick back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Bummer, right? I never spilled the beans to Vanessa or my fam about my inheritance because, honestly, my brain was all over the place back then to even think about cash. So, I figured it was time to take a nice, long break from work. With cash not being a worry anymore and my boss being super chill about it, I got the green light to step back and take some time to deal with my parents' passing. Loyal employee perks, am I right? So, like 2 weeks after my folks had left this world, Vanessa pops up one evening and says she needs to chat about something super important. So, we plop down in the living room, and she just launched into this whole thing about how she was totally over watching me sulk around and that I really needed to get my act together and hit up therapy. So Vanessa was all like, "Dude, your vibe is totally off. Who mourns that hard for their parents?" She told me to toughen up and quit the waterworks. I couldn't believe how harsh her words were. I mean, come on. I tried to explain that my grief isn't something I just picked out of a hat, and honestly, grieving for my parents for a month is totally normal for anyone, right? I reminded her about how she was a total mess for months over her childhood dog, and I never gave her a hard time about it. So she really shouldn't be acting like this with me. She was totally annoyed and grumbled about how ugly it was to see me bawl my eyes out. There was a whole lot of back and forth, but eventually she just dropped it, so I figured that was the end of the saga. So, my cousin Ryan slid into my DMs the other day, checking in to see if I'm still alive and kicking. Ryan and I have always been tight since we were kids, so it's totally normal for him to swing by and see how I'm doing. So, he casually asked if my wife and I were on a little break or something. I was totally baffled by his question, so I just shot back that my wife and I were still going strong. I didn't think much of his question at first, just figured he was being nosy or maybe a little worried. But then he called me right away, so I figured I'd better pick up. So, Ryan hits me up and says he just saw my wife busting out of a hotel with some dude. And get this, they totally hugged it out like they hadn't seen each other in ages before they both peace out in different directions. So, he was all like, "Dude, the way they hugged isn't your typical friend hug," which is why he was grilling me about whether Vanessa and I were still an item. I totally repeated myself and let him know that she and I were definitely an item, and I promised that when she got back home, I'd totally ask her about it. But my cousin, the ultimate worrywart, totally talked me out of asking her. So, he was like, "Dude, just go through her phone and see if she's cheating on you. Apparently, if she's already getting cozy with this other dude, she might not even admit it." Classic, right? I can't believe I'm saying this, but he kinda had a point. I mean, Vanessa did go ahead and kiss a coworker and even sent some not-so-PG pics to a total stranger. Yikes. I figured it'd be smarter to do a little snooping before I went all confrontational on her, and that's exactly what I did. I snooped around her laptop and phone, but it was a total bust, nothing to see here. No shady messages or calls were made to anyone, promise. I was beginning to wonder if my cousin had mixed up someone else for Vanessa. Classic move, right? So, there we were, just me and Vanessa, lounging on the sofa, binge-watching TV, when suddenly I heard a phone buzzing like it was trying to breakdance. I took a peek around and realized that neither my phone nor her phone was buzzing with any notifications. Talk about a digital ghost town. So, Vanessa totally caught me snooping around and was like, "I gotta hit the loo," and just bounced out of there. I was scratching my head, totally baffled because I was convinced I heard a phone buzzing. Then it hit me, maybe Vanessa's hiding another phone. So, when she strutted out of the bathroom, I spotted this phone-shaped bump poking out of her sweatpants pocket, and let me tell you, it totally confirmed what I was thinking. I had a chat with my cousin, and they were totally on board with my plan right away. So, he spilled the beans about this hotel where she was all cozy with some dude, and let me tell you, I spent the whole week just hanging around the hotel like a total detective, waiting to catch her red-handed. So, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday rolled by, and she was MIA. I figured she must be off having a secret rendezvous with Mr. Charming at some other hotel or something. So, Thursday rolled around and guess what? Everything went my way. How about that? I spotted my wife waltzing into the hotel in the afternoon, right when she was supposed to be munching on her lunch. And hot on her heels was this dude who looked super familiar, but I just couldn't put my finger on where I'd seen him before. I hung out for 15 minutes before finally strutting in after them. I told the receptionist I was just hanging out for a guest to show up. He was all like, "I can call the room." And I just laughed and said, "Nah, that's not necessary." 40 minutes later, I spotted them busting out of the elevator, all red-faced and buzzing with excitement like they just won the lottery. My heart totally dropped as I watched them, knowing I was about to face the music. Gathering up all the guts I could muster, I waddled over to them, my hands shaking like a leaf in a windstorm from all the rage and feeling totally backstabbed. My wife's eyes went all big and round like she just saw a ghost, and she froze right there like a deer in headlights. Before she could even get a word out, I threw my hand up like a traffic cop, shutting down her whole protest vibe. I wasn't in the mood for her excuse parade. I'd seen all I needed to see. I turned to the dude next to her and asked if he had any clue who I was. He gave me a nod and said he remembered me from the office Christmas party last year. Apparently, I'm her ex-husband now because she spilled the beans that we're currently on a break. Classic, right? I just stood there like a deer in headlights while he rambled on about how he totally wouldn't have touched her with a 10-foot pole if he'd known she was still hitched. I asked him if he was in the Vanessa fan club, and he just nodded like, "Yep, we're co-workers." My blood was boiling like a pot of spaghetti when I found out my wife had pulled the ol' switcheroo with a co-worker again. I just spun around like a ninja and strutted off, leaving them there with their jaws on the floor. As I cruised home, the crazy stuff I just saw hit me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Yikes. So, my marriage? Yeah, it hit the skids, totally wrecked by the ultimate backstab from the woman I thought was my ride or die. Ouch. As soon as I got home, I dove right into packing my bags like a pro. I was totally bummed and feeling like my heart was doing a sad little dance with everything happening in my life. So, Vanessa totally chased after me and barged into the house all out of breath, like she just ran a marathon or something. So there I was, up in my room, shoving my stuff into bags like a squirrel on a mission, and bam. She pops in and starts grilling me. She was all like, I totally messed up big time. And was practically begging me to let it slide. So, she started rambling about how lonely she was feeling, and in a total panic move, she decided to spin a tale to this coworker about us splitting up because, heaven forbid, she wanted to avoid the label of the cheating wife at work. She said she'd been itching to spill the beans for ages but was totally freaked out about how I'd react. I totally lost it and shouted at her to back off because I just couldn't handle another round of her tall tales. Oh man, I just knew that if I hadn't caught her in the act that day, she would still be sneaking around with him like it was no big deal. So Vanessa switched things up and started laying it on me, saying I couldn't just point fingers at her for everything and that I had to own up to my part in this mess too. I hit pause on the packing and just stared at her, totally blown away by the sheer nerve she had to even throw that idea out there. So, she started going on about how I hadn't gotten any action with her for ages after I stumbled upon her messages on Reddit, and this whole dry spell just kept rolling even after my folks kicked the bucket. I was fuming and let her have it, telling her she had zero right to point fingers at me for her sneaky moves. I mean, come on, she made those choices all on her own, no matter what was going on. No way. She seriously thought she could pin the blame on me like my heartbreak was the reason for her cheating? What a wild ride. But Vanessa wouldn't back down, her words slicing through the air like a hot knife through butter. She totally called me out for not paying enough attention to her and for dropping the ball on my husband duties. So, she hit me with the classic line about being too boring while I was busy grieving my parents. Then, she suggested that instead of just bouncing from the marriage, I should try to see things from her side. Can you believe that? She even threw out the idea of us opening up our marriage, saying I could totally date other people if that's what I was into. I just rolled my eyes at her words because I was totally over this lady. I stuffed my bag and before I bounced, I let her know I'd be shooting over the divorce papers. Right now, I'm crashing at my cousin's place, and Vanessa has been blowing up my phone like it's a game of whack-a-mole. Her messages go from "I'm so sorry" to "thanks for messing everything up." She keeps telling me to look at things her way and let it slide because she was just feeling a bit lonely. So, here I am, Reddit, just chilling and pondering if I'm the jerk in this situation. So, am I really the bad guy here for nudging my wife into cheating just cause I was in a funk? Seriously? Update 1, whoa, when I threw this post out there, I totally thought it would just vanish into the void. Whoa, checking out over 300 comments on my post has totally blown my mind. I honestly thought my story was pretty boring, but watching you guys go at it in the comments has been a total blast. Hey everyone pointing fingers at me for my wife's cheating because I wasn't getting cozy with her, I really hope you never end up in a mess like this. Good luck with that. I thought my wife was the queen of loyalty, so when I stumbled upon her flirty texts with some random dude, let's just say it hit me right in the feels, hard. No way I could just wipe the slate clean and jump into bed with her like everything was hunky-dory. So, 2 weeks later, my folks kicked the bucket, and let me tell you, getting cozy with my wife was the absolute last thing I was thinking about. It's like some of you have never been through the whole grief thing, because if you had, you'd totally get that everyone handles it in their own quirky way. Man, losing my parents has hit me like a ton of bricks during all this. If my wife can't keep it together and would rather hop into bed with someone else, that's totally on her, not me. Oh, for sure, I felt a tad guilty at first, but after chatting with my cousins and scrolling through the comments, I'm totally convinced this one's all on my wife. She figured, why not have a little fun and sleep around? It was totally her jam. No regrets here about calling it quits on this marriage. I've already had a chat with my divorce lawyer, and we're all set to roll with my decision. I also had a chat with my in-laws, you know, Vanessa's folks. They totally didn't know she had pulled a fast one on me. She just skipped over the juicy detail and told them I ghosted because I was still bummed about my folks. I spilled the beans on everything that went down, and they were just as mad at Vanessa as I was. They've totally promised me that they believe I'll make the right call. No pressure, right? Here's the scoop, update 2. Whoa, it's been 5 months since I last checked in. Time flies, huh? Hey, sorry for the radio silence. I've been knee-deep in all the legal stuff for my divorce. Fun times, right? Guess what? I've got some awesome news to spill. Well, Vanessa and I finally pulled the plug on our marriage. That greedy lady thought she could snag my stuff during the divorce, but luckily my lawyer pulled out the big guns and showed she was cheating on me. Thanks to that, I got to keep my assets, including the sweet $2 million inheritance from my folks. So, Vanessa, totally clueless about the massive stash my folks left me, thought she could just waltz in and claim half of it like it was her birthright or something. But the judge was like, no way, not today. And shot her down right then and there. I've jumped right into the next chapter of my life, no dilly-dallying here. Not long after I flew the coop, I stumbled upon this awesome gal named Emma on Bumble. She's a supermom who totally rocks and has this adorable little dude named Ollie. So, Emma's been through the ringer too. She lost her husband a year back, so she totally gets the whole loss and grief roller coaster I've been riding. We've totally clicked, bonding over our wild stories and our shared dream of making a cozy, love-filled nest for our families. Emma is a total powerhouse. Her hustle and grit totally blow my mind every single day. I totally respect how she's rocking the whole solo parenting thing with her kiddo. Ollie is an awesome kid, bursting with energy and always asking questions. It's been a blast getting to know him. I hit the jackpot and I'm super thankful that both of them decided to let me crash their party. So, guess what? I've finally ditched my cousin's place and scored myself a sweet condo. So, guess what? I'm back at my job because, honestly, I like it there. Plus, sitting around the house doing absolutely nada is just not my vibe. It took me a hot minute to adjust to the solo life, but honestly, I can't say I'm mad about it. Sure, it can get a bit lonely sometimes, but hey, I'd pick solo Netflix nights over dealing with a cheating partner any day. I've been chatting with a therapist to help me bounce back from my parents' passing and my history with Vanessa, all in the name of crafting a brighter future. I totally miss my folks every single day, and I really hope they're giving me a virtual high five for ditching the toxic marriage. Oh man, my mom would have totally lost it at Vanessa for pulling that cheating stunt on me. So, a bunch of you slid into my DMs after my first update telling me to get an STD test, And guess what? I did it, and the results were negative. Phew. What a relief. I was totally chill knowing I dodged any extra drama from Vanessa's cheating escapades. So, ever since the whole divorce drama went down, Vanessa's been trying to hit me up, saying she's super sorry and all that jazz. I've totally let her off the hook for her past screw-ups because, honestly, why keep dragging that baggage around? So, she's been trying to set up a meet and greet post-divorce, and I was like, nope. I shut that down faster than a bad joke, letting her know I'm not about to hit the rewind button on our relationship. I let her know it's time for us to hit the road and move on, you know? I really hope she gets it and quits bugging me already. Hey everyone. So, it's been a hot minute, 3 months, to be exact, since my last update. I know, you've all been on the edge of your seats waiting for news. Well, here it is. I finally popped the big question and asked Emma to marry me, party popper emoji. Guess what? She said yes. Now we're diving headfirst into planning our future as a fam. Exciting times ahead. I totally ghosted her call. So then she bombarded me with messages asking if it was true, claiming Emma was just a gold digger who totally didn't love me at all. I gave her the old blockaroo because her messages were driving me up the wall, and honestly, I didn't see the point in keeping in touch. So, this lady decided to hit me up with a super long email, basically laying it all on me and saying I was the one who totally wrecked our marriage. Classic, right? So, she went on and on about how she was totally head over heels for me, but I went and shattered her heart by not believing in her. Classic move, right? She totally threw me under the bus for divorcing her without even giving it a shot and begged me not to tie the knot with Emma, who she claimed was just all kinds of wrong for me. She was all like, no way. You're actually back on your feet? And then she goes on about how Emma's about to get the upgraded, way happier version of me. Crazy, right? She claims I was the one who slipped through her fingers. Man, I was wiped out reading her emails. This lady just kept going on and on about the same stuff like a broken record. I've totally blocked her on Gmail, so fingers crossed she doesn't whip up another email just to annoy me again. Thinking about all the craziness that went down, I've come to the hilarious conclusion that I definitely wasn't the one who slipped through the cracks. I was the one who pulled off the great escape. I'm super thankful I managed to break free from that drama-filled relationship full of lies and backstabbing. Now, I'm living my best life on my own terms with someone who actually loves and respects me for the awesome person I am. With Emma, I stumbled upon a love that's the real deal, totally genuine, no strings attached, and built on trust and a whole lot of respect. It's like finding a unicorn in a field of horses. We're teaming up to create a future packed with love, giggles, and a whole lot of crazy possibilities, and I couldn't be more thankful for that. Hey, if you're out there dealing with something like this, I've got some super simple advice for you. Don't just take whatever comes your way, go for the good stuff you actually deserve. Go with your gut and don't hesitate to bounce from anything that's not doing you any favors. Life's way too short to hang out with folks who don't get how awesome you are. Hey there, awesome listeners. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and hey, don't forget to smash that like button, share the love, and hit subscribe.